Hello guys, hello. Welcome sa Send of Coaching naman natin sa subject na Soil Science. So dalawa na lang yung kulang natin for this Send of Coaching. We have Soil Science and then Crop Science. So simulan na natin for this subject, Soil Science. Number one question, sabi dyan, which of the following soil orders is characterized by organic material exceeding 20% organic carbon content and typically found in wetlands and swamp areas? So mapapansin natin, the question is very exhaustive. First off, we need to understand it is asking for a soil order. At ano daw yung characteristic ng soil order na yan? It is characterized by organic material exceeding 20% organic carbon content. And typically, itong mga soil orders daw na to ay nakikita sa wetlands and swamp areas. So anong soil order kaya yon? Spodosol, histosol, mollisol, or ultisol? So the correct answer here is histosol. Okay? Histosol. Letter B, histosol. So the way that I memorize this is histo. Okay? Histo is history. Yan. Ngayon, sino yung mga taong nasa history? Yung mga matatanda. Ngayon, yung mga matatanda, sila ay quote-unquote, amoy lupa na mga organic. Yan. So, ewan ko kung paano nyo i-memorize sa anong strategy ang gagamitin nyo. Pero that's the way I memorize this. So, yung mga matatandang lupa, usually mayaman sa carbon dioxide or sa fossil fuel, something like that, histosol. Number two, spodosols are primarily characterized by which of the following features? So sa number two question naman, hindi pa yung style ng tanong. Nagbigay na mismo siya ng soil order. Ano yung binigay niyang soil order? Spodosol. Ngayon, ang tinatanong niya ngayon, ano daw yung primary characteristic ng spodosol? So letter A ba? High base saturation and thick molic epipedon. Letter B ba? Acidic soils with spodic horizons rich in Fe or iron and aluminum complex with organic matter. C. Highly weathered soils in humid tropics depleted in basic cations. Or letter D. Clay-rich soils that shrink and swell with moisture changes. Kung mapapansin nyo, yung spodosol na ito, okay, yung word yung root word, I would say, or the word where spodosol is derived can be found in the option. And that word is spodic horizon. Okay? Ngayon, yung spodic horizon daw ay mayaman, they are rich in iron and aluminum. So, ang tamang sagot dyan ay letter B. Okay? Spodosol po. Okay? Spodosols, yan yung ating mga acidic soils na sobrang taas ng iron and aluminum content niya. So the reason behind kung bakit acidic itong mga lupa na to is because of the too much iron and aluminum content. Yung letter A, soil order with high base saturation and thick molic epipedon, mollisol ang tawag natin dyan. Letter C, highly weathered soils. So, highly weathered soils na wala masyadong, it is depleted with basic cations. These are oxysols naman. And yung soil orders that shrink and swell, vertisol na ang tawag naman dyan. So here I give you a list of tables on the 12 soil orders. Yan. With the soil order here, soil order name, what is the unique feature, and how to best memorize or remember its feature. So for instance, we have alphisols. When you say alphi, isa sa mga importanteng konsepto dyan is that these soil orders are fertile soils. So bakit sila fertile soils? Because they have subsurface clay accumulation and high base saturation. So the way that you can memorize that is alphys for al for aluminum and phys for fertility. Okay? Andisols naman, yan yung mga soils na makikita na malapit sa mga bulkan. So Andes volcanoes and volcanic soils. Aridisols, these are your dry soils. So arid dry, think of the desert, arid. Yeah. And then I have included here all of the 12 soil orders for your reading and for your review. So ito yung nabanggit natin kanina, mollysols, they are very dark, rich, organic, fertile soils that can be found in grassland soils. So ano yung pagkakaiba ng mollysols at saka histosols? So isang key difference nila is yung mollysol mo nakikita sa grassland, yung histosols naman, which is an organic soil as well, can be found in peats and marshes, no? Yung mga wetlands natin. Okay? Yan. So you can get the handouts that I have provided you in the Google Classroom Drive, and then you can read all of those para ma-review ulit kayo, ma-refresh kayo doon sa 12 soil orders na na-discuss ko rin sa subject na soil science. Number 3 question. According to Dukoshev's soils classification system, similar parent materials produce different soils primarily because of variations in which factor. So, the question is, nag-refer siya dun sa konsepto ni Dukoshev's soil classification system or soil classification model. Ngayon, sino ba si Dukoshev? Si Dukoshev ay isang scientist at isa sa mga primary contribution niya ay yung mga soil forming factors. And the soil forming factors is the chloride. Yan. Chloride. So ano yung soil forming factors na yan? We have climate, we have organisms, we have relief, parent material, and ano yung T? Time. So hanapin nyo lang yung option na pasok dito sa chlor system or soil forming factors. So the correct answer here is letter B, climate. So ito yung sinasabi ko na Dukoshev-Chlorf model. According to Dukoshev, the soils are primarily formed and it is affected by different factors. And according to this model, yung factors na yan can be classified into 5 factors. Ano-ano yung 5 factors na yan? We have climate, for instance, this is your CL. That is the temperature. That is the rainfall. Okay? Temperature, rainfall. These 2 factors can be attributed to climate and this can affect the formation of your soil. For instance, yung temperature natin, they can speed up or slow down chemical reaction. Yung ating rainfall, they can remove the nutrients through leaching. They can remove or leach the minerals through the soil layers. So, yan yung isa sa mga factors ni Dukoshev. O stands for organisms or yung ating mga buhay na nilalang na nakatira doon sa lupa. So kasama dyan yung mga burrowing animals natin, such as your earthworms. Kasama dyan yung mga halaman, yung root system nila primarily. Kasama dyan yung mga bacteria and fungi. They can alter and physically mix the soil and they can alter the state of formation ng soil nila. Relief. Pag nakita natin yung word na relief, ang ibig sabihin lang yan is topography or yung slope ng ating lupa. It is the slope and direction of the landscape. It influences yung gaano karaming sunlight yung kanyang nare-receive, for instance. It also affects yung temperature ng lupa na yon. It affects water runoff, depende dun sa direction or slope ng lupa. It can affect erosion and organic matter buildup. P stands for parent material. Ano ba yung bato? Or ano, di ba, lahat ng soils ay galing sa bato. So ano ba yung rock? That is the parent material or kung saan nang galing yung lupa na pinag-aaralan. So the parent material now affects or is the determining factor of the chemical composition of the soil. So, kung bakit ganito yung chemical composition ng ating soil, kung bakit mayaman siya, for instance, sa calcium carbonate, it is because of the parent material. And finally, time. Now, time, ayan, isa yan sa pinaka-importanting factor sa soil formation process because you need time in order for the rocks to weather. So, the higher the time, usually, no, the higher the time na nagwe-weather yung ating rocks, more than likely, the older yung ating soil. And vice versa. Although, pag sinabi nating edad ng lupa, hindi yan nakadepende sa oras rin. Ano? Nakadepende yan kung gaano ka-mature yung distinct soil horizons ng lupa. Kasi may mga lupa tayo na kahit na siguro sobrang tagal na nawe-weather yung rocks ng mga lupa na yon, wala pa siyang mature na distinction in terms of soil horizons. Maaaring yung lupa na yon ay bata pa. However, may mga lupa naman na nagkaroon na ng distinct horizons agad, maaaring yung mga lupa na yon ay matatanda naman. So yun yung way natin of classifying whether the soil is old or young. Number 4. What are the 6? Number 4. The 6 hierarchical levels of soil taxonomy classification from most general to most specific. So ang concept na dapat alam natin dyan is ano ba yung soil taxonomy hierarchy from the most general going now to the most specific. So ang sagot ba ay letter A, order, suborder, grade group, subgroup, family, series? Or letter B, order, family, suborder, grade group, subgroup, series? Or letter C, order, grade group, suborders, subgroup, family, or series? And letter D, series, family, subgroup, grade group, suborder, or order. So the correct order dyan, from most general going to the most specific is letter A. Okay? Order, suborder, grade group, subgroup, and family. So ito yung key hierarchical levels in soil taxonomy. Okay? Yung pinaka-general sa kanila, yung broadest level is the order level. So dyan na pumapasok yung ating soil, yung ating 12 soil orders. Yung pinaka-specific naman is the series. So kapag binaliktad yung tanong, ano naman daw yung pinaka-specific going to the broadest, so ang pinaka-specific dyan is your series kasi it now specifically identify the location of the soil. And ang pinaka-broadest naman would be your order. Babaliktarin lang natin ngayon yung rankings nila. So these are the 12 soil orders. These are the 6 hierarchical levels in soil taxonomy. So ano yung order? Well, basically, yan yung broadest level and yung ating 12 soil orders. Ano naman yung suborder? Suborder speaks about the moisture levels and temperature levels sa ating lupa. So dyan napapasok, for instance, yung mga aquic soils. Dyan napapasok yung isometric, no? Isothermic, yung mga ganun na terms, yung temperature na ng lupa. Grade group talks about the horizons and mineral content of the soil layers. Yun yung grade group. Subgroup is a more unique attribute of the grade group. Family talks about more on the physical and chemical properties of the soil. Yung soil texture niya, kasama na din dyan, and yung mineralogy niya, yung mineral content, and ano ba yung practical application ng lupa na yan. So yun yung pinapakita ng hierarchical levels sa soil taxonomy. Next question, number 5. It's a question again to identify which soil order is being described. Sabi sa number 5, which among the 12 soil orders is most suitable for agricultural use due to its molic epipedon, high base saturation, and formation in grassland environments. So, tatlo yung characteristic dyan. It has a molic epipedon. It has a high base saturation, so mataas yung pH ng lupa. And nakikita daw yan sa grassland environment. So the correct answer here is, meron yung key phrase na molic dyan, papasok na yan doon sa soil order na letter B, mollisol. So mollisol yan. Number 6, which soil horizon, so it is now talking about a soil horizon that is composed mainly of decomposed plant and animal remains and is rich in organic matter. So anong soil horizon daw yung mayaman sa organic matter? So ang tamang sagot dyan ay letter A horizon. Hindi, letter O, mas specific yun, O horizon, or your organic horizon. Letter C, O horizon, ang tamang sagot dyan. Number 7, the process by which soil materials like clay and organic matter are removed from the upper soil horizons through water percolation, or yung pagtama ng lupa dun sa pagtama ng tubig dun sa lupa and nagkakaroon ng runoff. Ano daw kaya ang tawag dun sa process na yan? So in this process, the soil materials like clay and organic matter are removed from the upper soil. Ano kaya ang tawag dun sa process na yan? Eluviation, weathering, or leaching. So, dalawa actually yung tamang sagot dyan. It could be eluviation or leaching. Pero, mas technically correct yung salitang eluviation. So, eluviation is the process wherein soil materials are being removed from the upper soil horizon going to the lower soil horizon. Now, balik rin naman natin yung question, yun yung tinatanong sa number 8. How about the process wherein the soil materials, the deposition of soil materials removed from the upper horizon goes now into the lower soil horizon? Ang tawag mo naman sa process na yan is eluviation. So meron tayong dalawang process of the soil materials being moved. Okay? Kapag yung soil material mo ay nag-exit, okay, kapag siya ay nag-exit from the upper horizon, eluviation yan. Eluviation. So nag-exit, so ito yung pamamaraan ko to memorize it, nag-exit yung soil materials, eluviation. Kapag naman yung soil materials ay pumasok, okay, so there's inside, yan, pumasok yung mga soil materials na nawala from the upper horizon, pumasok siya, so it went in to the lower horizon, so eluviation naman yan. Eluviation. So para hindi kayo malito between the distinction of these two terms. So yan, eluviation, meaning in. The soil material is going in the lower horizon from the upper horizon. So balikan natin, i-reviewin natin yung different soil horizons ulit natin sa soil science. So meron tayo specifically 5. O horizon, A horizon, B horizon, C horizon, and R horizon. Now when we say or horizon, yan yung mga lupa, usually, na meron silang, yan yung layers ng lupa na mataas ang organic matter. So usually, these are thin, dark layer consisting of fresh and partially decomposed organic matter. Yun yung ating O horizon. Sa baba ng O horizon, for some soils, we can find now the A horizon. And we call this A horizon as your topsoil. So below your O horizon is your A horizon. Topsoil ang tawag dyan. So sa topsoil na yan, dyan mo makikita yung root system ng halaman usually. And dyan mo rin makikita yung iba't ibang microorganisms as well as large animals like your earthworms. So dito sa A horizon, mix na siya ngayon ng mineral particles and organic matter or what we call as humus. Now, from this horizon, from A horizon, maaring magkaroon dyan ng tinatawag na eluviation process. Kaya dito sa bandang ito, pwede mo ring tawagin na yung layer or yung zone kung saan nag-e-exit yung organic matter or soil materials during times kung saan nagkakaroon ng rainfall. This area now would be called your E horizon or the horizon of eluviation or your eluviation layer. Kasi at this particular area, kapag umulan, nawawash out po yung organic material dyan, nawawash out yung mineral content ng lupa dyan. Saan siya ngayon papunta? Papunta siya doon sa ating eluviation layer. Okay? Doon sa layer kung saan nagde-deposit naman yung mga nawalang soil particles from the eluviation layer. And your eluviation layer is usually your B horizon. Okay? Now, ano yung B horizon natin? That's the eluviation layer. Diyan pumupunta, okay? Diyan pumupunta yung mga nawawalang organic matter and materials from your eluviation layer. So diyan naiipon, kumbaga, yung mga clay, iron, aluminum, and organic matter as well. So this horizon has a very strong structure. Usually medyo redder or browner yung kanyang kulay and higher density yung layer na yan because of higher clay accumulation. Kasi nga yung clay na nandito, bumabagsak doon sa ating eluviation layer. We now have our C horizon, and the C horizon now is your parent material. Okay? So parent material naman na po yung ating C horizon. So the C horizon now is where you can see saan ba nagmula yung lupa? Where does the soil begins to form? So it is now composed usually of weathered or partially weathered rocks. Okay? Weathered or partially weathered parent material. Or yes, dyan mo makikita yung basically yung composition ng lupa. And finally, yung pinakababa, yung base ng ating lupa is your R horizon, which is now your bedrock. Ito ay solid na foundation. Ano? It is made up of unweathered rocks beneath the soil. So, yan yung ating different soil horizons. Again, your elevation layer, this is also called E horizon. Okay? So, dyan, yan yung layer kung saan nawawala yung mga organic matter, nawawala yung mga soil particles kasi nga due to water in the infiltration, so dahil dun sa tubig kapag umulan and bumabagsak yung mga content niya dun sa eluviation layer. Number 9. Which of the following soil forming factors is represented by letter P in the Clort model? So again, yung Clort model, this was discovered or this was popularized by Duquesne. So yung P dun sa Clort model is letter D, parent material. Number 10. In the Clort framework, which factor encompasses water, temperature, and atmospheric conditions that influence weathering and soil development? So it's now talking about part of the Clort model, and doon daw sa part ng Clort model na to, naandyan yung mga factors katulad ng tubig, temperature, and atmospheric condition. So yung water, temperature, and atmospheric condition, this now defines your climate. So letter D ang tamang sagot dyan. Letter D, climate. Number 11, to familiarize yourselves with some basic formulas sa soil science. Bulk density is calculated as what? So ano daw yung formula basically ng bulk density? So bulk density is dry weight divided by total soil volume. Okay? Total soil volume. So that's letter A. Now, bulk density divided by total soil volume. Anong pinagkaiba ng bulk density at saka particle density? So sa particle density, ang tinitignan lang natin dyan is the volume of solid materials in the soil. So hindi yung total soil volume, but rather the volume of only the solid materials in your soil. Kasi remember, your soil is also composed of not solid materials. So dyan napapasok ngayon yung pore spaces, for example, which is made up of gas and water. Porosity naman can be determined using what formula? So ang porosity, ano naman daw ang formula ng porosity? The formula of porosity is letter B. Okay? 1 minus bulk density divided by particle density. So quick review. Again, what is bulk density? So sa bulk density, we are looking at how much dry soil mass is packed into a given volume. Now, when we say bulk density, tinitignan natin yung mass ng lupa in comparison to its total volume. So ano yung total volume na sinasabi dyan? Including the soil, solids, and the air spaces of your soil. So yan yung ating bulk density. Kasi sabi ko nga, ang lupa natin, it is composed of solids and pore spaces. So the way that we compute for the bulk density is using this formula. Mass of dry soil and the total volume of soil. So for instance, let's say soil sample weighs 400 grams after oven drying and occupies a total volume of 300 centimeter cube. Ano ngayon yung magiging bulk density niya? So ano yung mass? The mass is 400. And then i-divide mo yan dun sa total volume ng soil, which is 300. And ang lalabas is 1.33 grams per centimeter cube. So how are you going to interpret the results of your bulk density? So this is a table that you can use. If the bulk density is less than 1.1 grams per centimeter cube, ang ibig sabihin yung lupa mo, they are very porous, and these are usually organic soils. Kapag ang lupa is 1.1 to 1.4 grams per centimeter cube, yan yung pinaka-ideal. In fact, yung pinaka-ideal na bulk density is this one, 1.33 grams per centimeter cube. Now, kapag greater than 1.6 grams per centimeter cube na yung lupa, usually, ang ibig sabihin yan, compacted na yung lupa natin. And kapag compacted yung lupa, it can now affect root penetration. It can restrict root growth, water movement, and air movement in the soil. Ano ang pinagkaiba ng bulk density sa particle density? So sa particle density, we are only looking at the mass per unit volume of soil solids. Okay? So sa particle density, soil solids, yung volume lang ng soil solids yung tinitignan natin. Same formula sila, pero instead of dividing the mass by the total volume of the soil solid, you are now dividing the mass here to the volume of soil solids only. So for instance, let's say your soil sample weighs 130 grams. Yan yung kanyang mass. Yung volume that is being occupied by only the solids, walang pore spaces, is 49 centimeter cube. So you're going to divide those two numbers at ang lalabas dyan is 2.65 grams per centimeter cube. Now, dahil volume of soil solids lang ang kino-consider natin sa particle density, usually yung nakukuha nating sagot sa particle density ay mas mataas or mas malaki kaysa doon sa bulk density. Because the denominator under your particle density, the denominator, this one, yung nasa baba, mas mababa yung number na nandyan. Kaya mas malaki yung nakukompute natin na number as compared to bulk density. So how are you going to interpret the results? So ito yon. Usually, yung usual na healthy na particle density is around 2.65 grams per centimeter cube. So normal, mineral soil yan. Kapag less than 2 grams per centimeter cube, usually organic matter na yung soil na yan, so organic soils. And kapag greater than 2.7 grams per centimeter cube, That means medyo mataas na yung mineral content naman ng lupa na yan. And finally, combining both together, bulk density and particle density, we can now compute for the porosity of our soil. So when we talk about porosity, where we are looking how much of the soil volume is made up of pores. So gaano karami dun sa ating soil volume ang pore spaces. Yung content ng lupa that is occupied by water and air. Yun yung sinasagot ng porosity na formula. So how do we compute for porosity? Porosity is 1 minus PD or bulk density divided by particle density times 100. Using this formula, it can give us now the percentage of pore spaces in the total volume. So let's see. Example, ang bulk density natin is 1.33 grams per centimeter cube. Ang particle density naman ay 2.65 grams per centimeter cube. We are now going to compute for the total porosity in the soil. So, using the formula, that is 1 divided by bulk density na 1.33, 1 minus the bulk density of 1.33 divided by now the particle density of 2.65 times 100. So, the porosity is 1 minus 0.502. Yun yung sagot dito. Times 100, you now get a porosity of 49.8%. Meaning, yung lupa natin has pore spaces equivalent to 49.8% of its volume. So, ano yung content ng 50.2? Yung 50.2 mo, yan na ngayon yung soil solid. Whereas yung 49.8, yan yung total pore spaces ng lupa. So how do you interpret the results? If it is greater than 60%, it just means that the soil is too porous. So it is holding too much water. Kasi the more porous the material is, the higher yung nakukuha niyang tubig. So isipin nyo na lang yung sponge. The sponge is a porous material, so it absorbs a lot of water. Yung pinaka-ideal dyan is around 50%, yung parang na-compute natin kanina. So 49%, 50%. So these are the ideal for most crops. Ibig sabihin, 50-50 yung pore spaces at saka yung soil solids mo. So this is good for air and water circulation. And kapag it is less than 35%, it just means the soil is compacted. Ibig sabihin, ang risk dyan is waterlogging. Kasi hindi nakaka-infiltrate yung tubig. And yung roots, hindi rin siya nakakagalaw ng maayos because the soil is very compacted in their nature. Yan. So that's a quick review on our bulk density and particle density. Number 13. Which soil structure type is most common in B horizons and appears as cube-like blocks of nearly equal dimensions? So again, this is now talking about soil structure. So kapag soil structure ang pinag-uusapan natin, ang tinitignan natin dyan is ano ba yung characteristic ng kanyang soil aggregates. Okay? So paano nabuo or paano yung shape nung lupa, nung soil aggregates na nagdikit-dikit. Okay? Magkaiba ang soil structure sa soil texture, ha? Kasi ang soil texture, it is only looking at the composition of sand, silt, and clay. Whereas yung soil structure, tinitignan natin kung ano ba yung formation ng aggregates ng soil na yun kapag sila ay nagdikit-dikit na. So usually, yung soil structure na makikita natin sa B horizons with cube-like blocks, ang tamang sagot dyan is B, blocky. Okay? So blocky yung soil structure na yan. Number 14. Granular soil structure, characterized by spherical or rounded beds, is most frequently found in what? So again, it is talking about the topic na soil structure. So the question is asking, yung granular soil structure, Ano daw yung characteristic nito? Spherical and rounded yung formation ng lupa, yung PEDS natin. Is most frequently, saan daw makikita ngayon? Specifically, sa ang horizon. So, ang tamang sagot dyan, yung granular soil structure, makikita yan sa A horizon. Kung saan, mataas ang organic matter. So, quick review on soil structure. So, when you say soil structure, yan yung natural na arrangement ng ating primary soil particles. Okay? Yan yung natural arrangement of our soil particles into aggregates or beds. So the key word sa soil structure natin is yung soil aggregates na tinatawag. Ngayon, kapag yung mga lupa na yan ay nagdikit-dikit, nagkakaroon sila ng specific shape, nagkakaroon din sila ng specific size. And because of this, you can now classify your structure type based on whether yan ay granular, blocky, platy, prismatic, columnar, or structureless. Now, when you say granular, yan yung formation ng lupa or formation ng PEDS kung saan it is composed of rounded PEDS resembling crumbs or breadcrumbs. So, ibig sabihin, medyo buwaghag yung lupa. Ano? So, kung nakakita na kayo ng isang plastic ng breadcrumbs, ganun yung style ng granular type na soil aggregate. So, saan yan madalas daw matatagpuan? Madalas yan natatagpuan sa A horizon. So, same dun sa question natin kanina, kung saan matatagpuan yung granular na soil aggregate natin. Yung blocky, these are usually shaped like cube. Okay? So, para silang mga cubes. So, ibig sabihin, may mga corners sila. Your blocky can be categorized further as subangular or angular. Pag sinabi nating subangular, usually yung kanyang corner, walang angle, walang definitive angle. Whereas yung angular naman, yan, yung angular, merong angle, kung mapapansin nyo. Okay? Ito, medyo rounded na yung kanyang corners. So, ang mga blocky naman, B or blocky, madalas naman yan natatagpuan sa B horizon. Yung platy natin, so, yung platy naman na structure type, mapapansin nyo, para siyang plato na pinagpatong-patong, kaya siya tinawag na platy. So, thin, flat plates oriented horizontally. So, often makikita ito sa E-horizon for some soils. Prismatic, para siyang poste. Prism, poste. Yan. So, these are vertically elongated angular columns with flat tops. So, flat yung top na nandito and they have definite angles on their corners. So, yun yung prismatic. Usually, makikita yan sa lower B horizon for semi-arid soils. Yung columnar is similar to prismatic, pero instead na flat, yung nandito sa ibabaw, hindi po. Yung nasa ibabaw, they are rounded. Ay, rounded. Yun yung pagkakaiba ng columnar at saka prismatic. So, makikita yan sa mga sodic soils natin. And finally, meron tayong soil structure that are structureless. Wala kang makikitang PEDS, wala kang makikitang aggregate. Kumbaga, sobrang buhaghag ng lupa, no? Single grain yung mga lupa na makikita natin or basically it's just massive dens of soils and clays. So makikita naman yan sa sea horizon or yung mga soil layers na undisturbed or hindi nagagalaw. Number 15. In soil texture classification, loam soil has approximately equal proportions of what? So, soil texture na ang tinatanong dyan. Sa konsepto ng soil texture, tinitignan lang natin yung percentage proportion ng ating sand, silt, at clay. So, based off on that proportion, we can classify yung soil texture ng lupa. Ngayon, ang tinatanong dito sa number 15, ano daw ba yung characteristic ng loam soil? Okay? In fact, nagbigay na agad ng keyword yung loam soil. Sabi niya, equal daw ang proportions ng anong component ng ating soil. Anong component ng ating soil particles? Equal ba na sand and clay only? Sand, silt, and clay? Sand and silt only? Or silt and clay only? So kapag yung lupa natin is classified as loamy, usually, ang ibig sabihin niya lang yan, yung tatlong soil particles natin, sand, silt, and clay, they have equal proportions. So ang tamang sagot dyan ay letter B. Okay? Sand, silt, and clay. So mahalaga na maintindihan nyo yung mga different types of soil texture using the soil textural triangle. So based off on the soil textural triangle, makikita nyo yung classification ng lupa, whether what do you call this, whether the soil has a clayey soil texture, silty clay loam, silty loam, silt loam, sandy clay, etc. So for instance, when we talk about sandy soils, usually yung mga sandy soils, mataas yung kanilang sand content. So yung sand content nila is around 85 to 100%. And mababa yung kanilang silt and clay content. On the other hand, yung mga silty soils naman natin, mataas yung kanilang silt component. Yung mga clayey soils, mataas yung kanilang clay components. So, meron akong commentary on this soil textural triangle na pwede nyong basahin dun sa inyong handouts. But basically, ito yung isa sa mga way natin to determine the soil texture of our soil. So, ang gagawin dyan, paghihiwalayin natin yung sand, silt, and clay contents ng lupa. And then we will put some percentage, gaano ba karami yung sand, gaano karami yung clay, gaano karami yung silt. And then, after that, ilalagay natin sa soil textural triangle in order to determine yung soil texture ng lupa. Next, number 16. Which soil pH is considered optimal for most crop production? So ano kayang soil pH yung optimal daw sa mga halaman natin? So ang optimal sa mga halaman natin is yung nasa gitna. Slightly acidic to neutral soil pH. How about yung garlic? Garlic cultivation requires a soil pH range of anong pH? So yung garlic natin, they require letter B, no? 6 to 6.5 na soil pH. So bakit ba kasi mahalaga ang soil pH sa lupa? Kasi soil pH now can determine the availability of nutrients in the soil. So ito ay isang table or isang chart na nagpapakita kung paano naapektuhan ng pH yung availability ng iba't ibang mga important nutrients sa lupa. So mapapansin nyo, saan daw yung optimal for most plants? From 6, ano ba yung nabanggit kanina? 6 to 7. Okay? So, optimal for most plants itong area na to. 6 to 7. Yan yung area na yan. So, mapapansin nyo, from 6 to 7 na soil pH, available yung ating nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Yung ating NPK available na around this pH range. Yung sulfur, calcium is also available. Magnesium is also available. Yung mga maliliit na nutrients natin, yung mga micronutrients natin like iron, manganese, boron, copper, and zinc, they're also available at this particular soil pH. Now, if the soil pH is too acidic, mas mababa yung soil pH natin, mapapansin nyo yung red color na sa mga nutrients natin. So yung red color now signifies na kulang na yung nutrients na yan. In fact, kapag medyo acidic yung lupa mo, ang mataas dyan is ito, iron. Right? Sobrang taas ng iron content dyan. Kaya nga yung mga acidic soils natin, mataas ang iron content nila. Pero hindi rin yan maganda sa halaman because we need to know na yung iron natin is a micronutrient. Kapag masyadong marami yan, nakakalason yan sa halaman. If you have higher soil pH naman, may mga elements or nutrients na available pa rin, like potassium and sulfur, pero marami ring mga micronutrients ang hindi na available. Katulad ng iron, manganese, boron, copper, and zinc. So ito talaga yung optimal point, itong area na to, 6 to 7. Kasi sa 6 to 7, available at right amounts yung ating mga soil nutrients. Next question. Number 18. Which clay mineral has higher cation exchange capacity and greater capacity to hold plant nutrients compared to kaolinite? So for this question, it is now asking us about a particular clay mineral. Now, itong clay mineral daw na to, mataas yung kanyang CEC, yung cation exchange capacity. So the way I think about CEC is simply magnet. So malakas yung magnet niya para makapag-magnet ng mga essential na nutrients sa lupa. And they have higher capacity to hold these nutrients compared to another clay mineral na tinatawag naman natin kaolinite. So, ano kaya yung tamang sagot dyan? So actually, yung clay mineral na mas mataas yung CEC nila to kaolinite ay dalawa. It's either elite or montmorillonite. Pero ang tinatanong kasi is a type of clay mineral with the greatest capacity or mas pinakamataas yung difference niya with kaolinite in terms of CEC. Kasi later on, kung mapapansin nyo, yung elite at saka montmorillonite, mas mataas talaga yung CEC nila as compared to kaolinite kasi mababa lang yung CEC ng kaolinite. Pero higit na mas mataas ang CEC ng montmorillonite as compared to elite and kaolinite. So dito, ang tamang sagot ay letter B. Now, let's talk about the different structural classifications of clay minerals in our soil. So una, pag-usapan muna natin yung pagkakaiba nung tinatawag nating 1:1 type and 2:1 type. Kapag sinabi mo natin na yung ating clay minerals has a 1:1 type of classification, ito po yan. Ito. Okay? So bakit siya tinawag na 1:1? Because it consists of one tetrahedral sheet bonded to one octahedral sheet. So meron kang isang tetrahedral sheet, which is this one, and nakaband siya sa isang octahedral sheet. So meron lang silang singular point of attachment. 1:1 type of mineral yan. Now, kapag 2:1 naman, ang sinasabi natin is that mayroon kang dalawang tetrahedral sheet na sinasandwich nila yung isang octahedral sheet. So ito naman yon, 2:1 type na mineral structure. So mapapansin mo, meron kang dalawang tetrahedral sheet, 1 and 2. And sa gitna niyan, merong isang octahedral sheet. So meron silang dalawang point of attachment. So we have 1 and 2. Okay? So yan naman yung ibig sabihin ng 2:1 in terms of structural classification ng clay minerals. Now, we can classify our clay minerals based on several groups. And isang pamamaraan nun is to determine kung sila ba ay 1:1 or 2:1. So unahin natin yung pinakasimple. Ang tawag natin doon, kaolinite. Okay? Yung mga kaolinite clay minerals natin, ang kanilang structure is 1:1. May isang tetrahedral at may isang octahedral lamang. Now, ang kaolinite groups natin na clay mineral groups, mababa yung kanilang capacity to absorb water and to retain nutrients. Yun yung characteristic ng kaolinite natin. Next group is what we call as the smectite group. Diyan na pumapasok yung ating mga montmorillonite. Okay? Smectite, yung broader classification nila. Ano yung kanilang soil structure? Ang soil structure nila is 2:1 structure. Yung kanilang clay structure, Now, itong mga smectite groups, yung ating mga montmorillonite, mataas yung CEC nila, yung capacity nila to magnet cations. Okay? Yung mga cations, which are basically your minerals na importante doon sa halaman. And they are highly expanding. So these soils can expand through alternative swelling, through alternative wetting and drying. Yung E-light mo, 2:1 pa rin. Pero isa sa mga pinaka-important characteristic niya is the potassium structure. So yung potassium acts as an interlayer cation sa E-light groups natin. At the same time, ang E-light natin, mas mataas rin yung CEC and water absorption niya as compared to your kaolinite. We also have vermiculite group. Ang mga vermiculite groups naman natin, 2:1 pa rin ang kanilang structure and medyo limitado na yung expansion nila. Hindi sila basta-basta. Kung nagsuswell man sila, medyo hindi ganon kagrabe yung swelling sa lupa. Kasi yung mga lupa natin, basically, kapag nababasa yan at natutuyo, nagsuswell yung mga yan. So yung vermiculite, nagsuswell siya pero medyo limited lang yung swelling niya. We also have what we call as chlorite. Now, chlorite is 2:1 type of mineral. Yan. Okay? Now, 2:1 actually, yung kanyang yung kanyang precise na classification in terms of clay structure. Now, bakit siya 2:1? Because of a mineral called the brucite sheet, okay? Which is basically a molecule composed of magnesium, oxygen, and hydrogen. So, chlorite naman yung tawag dyan. So, sa chlorite, ang isipin nyo lang, meron siyang unique feature na brucite sheet. And finally, meron tayong tinatawag na allophane. Ngayon, itong mga allophane na to, you cannot classify it whether it is 2:1 or 1:1. Kasi itong mga allophanes, they are amorphous. Meaning, wala talaga silang structure. Wala silang crystalline structure. For example, ito yung smectite natin at ito naman yung ating kaolinite. So mapapansin natin, may maayos silang structure, para silang plates if we illustrate them. Pero yung allophane, hindi. Okay? Medyo randomized yung kanilang molecular structure. So para silang, yung molecular structure nila are like gases, basically. Allophanes ang tawag dyan. So the keywords for allophanes is that they are amorphous. Okay? So ito yung iba't ibang clay mineral groups natin. Kaolinite, smectite, elite, vermiculite, chlorite, and allophane. At ito yung kanilang type of structure. Kung ang tatanong sa inyo sa exam, aling clay mineral groups, yung may 1:1 type of structure, ang tamang sagot dyan is kaolinite. Alin naman ang may amorphous na clay mineral structure? Allophane naman yan. Alin naman ang may 2:1 because of brucite sheet? Chlorite naman po yan. Okay? So ito yung expandability naman nila. So for instance, ang kaolinite mo, they are non-expanding. Ang chlorite, they are also non-expanding. Ang elite ay non-expanding as well and limited naman ang expansion ng vermiculite, whereas yung pinaka-highly expanding na group of clay minerals natin are yung smectite. So yung smectite natin, dyan nakasama yung Montmorillonite family. So sabi ko sa inyo kanina, base doon sa question, ang tinatanong kasi doon sa question is CEC, cation exchange capacity. Alin daw dyan yung may greater CEC as compared to kaolinite? So ang CEC ng kaolinite natin is actually very low. Okay? Now, yung elite natin, they have moderate CEC, so mas mataas yung CEC nila as compared to kaolinite. Yung smectite naman natin though, or the Montmorillonite group, they have very high. So if it is asking about the greater difference in terms of CEC content ng kaolinite, ang tamang sagot dyan is yung smectite or Montmorillonite group natin. Okay, mas mataas yung pagkakaiba ng smectite at kaolinite in relation to their cation exchange capacity. Number 19. Cation exchange capacity is most dependent on, saan kaya nakadepende ang cation exchange capacity? So again, yung cation exchange capacity, the way I think about it, to make it simple is, yan yung capacity ng lupa to magnet cations or to magnet yung mga nutrients na kailangan ng ating halaman. So yun yung cation exchange capacity. So, malakas pa yung magnet niya para makakuha ng nutrients. So, hindi ganun kalakas, basically. So, ano yung most important factor that determines whether the CEC is high or the CEC is low? So, ang tamang sagot dyan ay letter C. Okay? Clay content at organic matter. So, just a brief review. What is cation exchange capacity again? It measures the total capacity of soil to hold and exchange positively charged ions. Ano tong positively charged ions na to? Ang tawag natin dyan, cations. So yung capacity niya to exchange and to hold these cations, usually kasi yung mga minerals natin na kailangan sa halaman, they are cations. Although there are some minerals that are anions na kailangan din ng halaman. Okay? But usually, and most of them, they have positive charges. And yung ating soil, kailangan niya ng negative charges para mag-magnet itong dalawang to. Or they can attract each other. So, ito yung mechanism. So, the cation exchange involves negatively charged sites na nasa lupa, okay? Or nasa soil colloids mo. Usually, yung mga negative charges dyan can be found in the clay minerals and organic matter. Okay? Tapos, itong mga negatively charged site na to, which is composed of clay minerals and organic matter, sila yung nag-a-attract ng mga positively charged ions. Kaya naman, kapag mas mataas ang clay mineral at organic matter ng ating lupa, mas tumataas yung kanilang cation exchange capacity. Okay? Number 20. Which of the following nutrients is particularly subject to leaching losses in sandy soils due to its mobile nature? So, alin daw kaya sa mga nutrients na yan ang nawawash out sa lupa, particularly sa mga sandy soils? And bakit sila nawawash out? Kasi these nutrients daw are mobile in nature. So, A, B, C, or D? Ang tamang sagot dyan ay letter D. Ano? Nitrogen. So, let's talk about the different mobility of elements in the soil. Okay? Now, usually, we can classify the mobility of elements in the soil. So, iba yan sa halaman, ha? Kasi baka isipin nyo, sir, mobility, parang yan yung sa halaman, ha? Yung mobile or immobile, it affects younger or older portions of the plant. Hindi po. Pag sinabi nating mobility sa soil, merong mga nutrients na very mobile, merong mga nutrients that are moderately mobile, and merong mga nutrients na immobile. What does that mean? Yung mga mobile na elements sa lupa, sila yung mga gumagalaw. Okay? So, bakit sila gumagalaw? Because they cannot stick to the soil colloids. Hindi sila dumidikit doon sa lupa. Kaya naman, kapag umulan dyan, these elements are very prone to leaching. Now, balikan natin yung lesson natin sa CEC. Sabi natin, yung CEC is the capacity of our soil colloids to hold positively charged ions, right? Yan yung hinahawakan nila. Now, in order to hold positively charged ions, para mahawakan yan, kailangan na yung site nila is negative. Kasi opposite attracts, no? So, para mag-lock in yan, yung dalawang yan, para mahawakan yung mga nutrients natin, kailangan nila ng negative na spaces. Ngayon, what if yung ating ions are negative? So, kapag ions are negative, basically, itong dalawang yan, hindi sila pwedeng maghawakan. Okay? Hindi nahahawakan ngayon ng lupa yung mga different elements na ito. So kung mapapansin nyo, yung nitrogen, specifically kapag yung kanyang composition is nitrate, meron siyang negative charge. So hindi siya nahahawakan ngayon ng lupa natin. Ganin din yung sulfur as sulfate na may negative charge. So dahil hindi siya nahahawakan, kapag umulan, gumagalaw siya. Nawawash out siya dun sa lupa. Kasama na rin dyan yung iba't ibang mga elements natin like boron, chlorine, and molybdenum. Ano naman po yung mga moderately mobile? So itong mga moderately mobile naman na elements natin, they can be, they are usually cation. So positive yung kanilang charge na, so nahahawakan yan. This one is also positive, calcium is also positive. So nahahawakan niya ng lupa, but it could also be slightly washed away, lalo na kapag yung ating lupa is sandy. Okay? So pag ang lupa mo is sandy, wala siya masyadong CEC, nagalaw siya. Okay? Kasi wala kang mag-hold, wala kang capacity to hold the nutrients. So yes, positive sila. Effective yun kapag mataas yung CEC kasi it will hold the positive ions. But kapag sandy yung lupa, wala masyadong clay, wala masyadong organic matter, itong mga to ay pwedeng ma-wash out. So yun yung moderately mobile elements natin. Pero meron din naman tayong mga elements that are completely immobile. Okay? Hindi talaga sila gumagalaw. So, for instance, itong phosphorus as phosphate. Now, kung mapapansin nyo, yung kanilang charge dyan ay minus sign. So sabi niya, sir, akala ko ba kapag minus sign, hindi siya nakahawakan? Right? Bakit hindi siya gumagalaw? Ano yung reason? Now, the reason behind phosphorus being immobile is because yung phosphorus mo, nagbabind yan kapag mayroong iron or aluminum content doon sa lupa. So hindi siya nagbabind doon sa CEC or the capacity of the soil to hold the nutrients, but it binds with other elements that is found in your soil, particularly iron and aluminum. And kapag dumikit yan sa iron and aluminum, hindi na siya basta-basta nagagalaw. Okay? Now, organic nitrogen can also be immobile. Kung mapapansin nyo, iba't ibang klase ng nitrogen, iba't iba yung mobility nila. No? Kasi for instance, yung nitrogen mo as nitrate are very mobile. Yung ammonia mo na form ng nitrogen is moderately mobile, whereas yung organic nitrogen naman is completely immobile. Nakasama din dyan yung iron, copper, manganese, zinc, molybdenum, cobalt. Na kung mapapansin nyo, yung iron, hindi talaga yan gumagalaw dun sa lupa. So it sticks to the soil. Now, since the iron sticks to the soil, kapag dumikit yung phosphorus dyan, ibig sabihin, yung phosphorus hindi na rin gagalaw. Okay? So yan yung konsepto naman natin ng mobility of elements in the soil. Ako na tayo sa number 21. Iron deficiency in plants is characterized by what symptom? So kapag yung halaman daw natin ay kulang sa iron, ano yung nangyayari? Yellowing of older leaves, intervenal chlorosis in younger leaves, browning of leaf margins in younger leaves, or purple coloration in leaves and stems of older leaves. So tamang sagot dyan, kapag kulang ang iron, nagkukos dyan ng intervenal chlorosis in younger leaves. So we're now talking here about deficiency of nutrients in our plants. Now next question, ganun pa rin yung atake. Nitrogen deficiency in plants typically manifests as, so ano naman daw yung symptom ng nitrogen deficiency? So kapag kulang ang nitrogen sa halaman, nagkakaroon ng letter chlorosis, yellowing, intervenal chlorosis, or stunting with normal leaf color. So kapag kulang ang nitrogen sa halaman, ang cause niyan, ang resulting symptom niyan is yellowing starting from older leaves. Okay? Number 23. Paano naman kapag kulang ang potassium? Ano naman daw yung symptom? So kapag kulang naman ang potassium, nagkakaroon tayo ng, isipin nyo yung ni-review nyo, nagkakaroon tayo ng browning and necrosis, no? Particularly dun sa leaf margins. So, let's talk about the concept of mobility and immobility of nutrients sa halaman na. Kanina sa soil yung pinag-usapan natin. Ngayon naman sa halaman. Ngayon, kapag sinabi natin na ang nutrients sa halaman ay mobile, okay, or mobile ata yung right term. Anyways, kapag sinabi natin na yung ating nutrients sa halaman is mobile, it means it moves. Okay? Mobile, it moves. Now, since it moves, okay, yung ating mobile nutrients, usually nagmo-move yan from the older portions of the plant or older parts of the plant papunta doon sa younger parts of the plant. Kasi kapag may bagong shoot, for example, na sumibol, yung mga nutrients pupunta ngayon doon. So kapag nangyari yon, gumalaw yung nutrients at kulang yung nutrients natin kasi nga gumalaw from older papunta sa younger parts of the plant or tissues of the plant. Ang nawawalan ngayon ng nutrients ay yung older tissues. Okay? So ang naapektuhan is yung mga older parts of the plant. So kapag kulang ka ng nutrients na yan at mobile yung nutrients, gumagalaw yung nutrients from the older to the younger tissues. So nawawalan ngayon ng nutrients yung older tissues, kaya ang naapektuhan kapag mobile ang nutrients are older tissues. Kapag naman immobile yung nutrients, it means hindi siya gumagalaw. So kapag nandyan na siya sa older tissues at kulang yan, hindi na siya pupunta sa younger tissues. So it stays in your older tissues. Since it stays in your older tissues, kasi nga immobile siya, ang naapektuhan is yung mga younger parts of the plant or yung mga younger tissues natin. So isa-isahin natin yung mga nutrients and their deficiency. So this is just a review kasi I am assuming na napanood nyo na rin yung YouTube video ko on nitrogen deficiency. On nutrient deficiency. So simulan natin sa nitrogen. So ang nitrogen is a mobile nutrient. So dahil mobile yan, gumagalaw siya, so ano ang naapektuhan? Young or old? Old tissues, no? Kasi nawawala from the old, pumupunta sa new. So ano yung symptoms ng nitrogen? Yellowing of older leaves. And also nitrogen is very important. Kasama siya doon sa ating NPK, doon sa big three nutrients. So nitrogen also affects the overall growth of the plants. Pero yung pinaka-distinct feature niya is the yellowing of older leaves. Yung phosphorus naman natin, still mobile yan. So naapektuhan, older tissues. Pero ang key characteristic ng phosphorus deficiency is yung dahon nagiging color purple. So bakit kaya nagiging color purple yung dahon? Actually, yung purplish na color ng dahon na yon, yan ay response sa impaired energy production. Okay? So wala masyadong chlorophyll. So basically, nag-overcompensate yung halaman. Kaya instead na chlorophyll yung gamitin niya, anthocyanin. And yung anthocyanin na yun, yung nagbibigay ng purple color doon sa halaman. Potassium naman, mobile. So it affects older tissues of the plant. Okay, mobile. Kapag potassium deficiency, ang key characteristic niyan is yung browning ng left leaf edges. So this one. Yan. So potassium deficiency naman yan. Calcium deficiency, immobile. So naapektuhan is yung younger tissues. So nagkakaroon ng distorted young leaves, poor growth, and sa kamatis, kapag kulang ang calcium, nagkakaroon ng blossom and rot. Okay? Ito, blossom and rot. Magnesium deficiency. So these are mobile. So since it moves from older to younger, ang naapektuhan is yung older tissues. Okay? Kapag kulang ang magnesium naman, nagkukos ng intervenal chlorosis, katulad ng nakikita nyo dito. Sulfur is immobile, so it affects younger leaves. Yan. So yellowing of younger leaves, sulfur deficiency. Iron, zinc, manganese, boron, copper, and molybdenum. Yan naman yung ating micronutrients. So tignan natin. So ang iron, immobile yan. So dun sa question kanina, ano daw ba yung kinokos ng iron deficiency? So immobile siya. So ang point of target niya is usually ang nagsasuffer dyan is yung younger tissues or young leaves. Okay? So intervenal chlorosis in younger leaves, iron deficiency yan. Kapag yellowing sa older leaves, nitrogen naman. Yun yung pinagkaiba, no? Zinc deficiency, this is still immobile. So, since hindi gumagalaw, younger leaves pa rin yung naapektuhan. So, chlorosis in young leaves. Yan. Manganese, they are also immobile. So, younger parts of the younger tissues of the plant pa rin yung naapektuhan. Particularly, ang unique sa manganese is yung pagkakaroon ng chlorosis with brown spots. Boron, still younger tissues. So, nadidistort yung young leaves and hindi tumutubo ng maayos yung prutas. We have copper deficiency, which is still immobile. Again, ang inaapektuhan yan is yung young leaves kasi hindi nga gumagalaw. Kakaroon ng twisted growth yung ating mga dahon. And finally, we have molybdenum. But molybdenum here now is mobile. So dahil mobile siya, ang inaapektuhan is yung older leaves. So very poor ang seed set kapag kulang ang molybdenum. Hindi basta-basta nakakatubo ng maayos yung ating seeds. So ito yung summary ng mga different nutrients natin. Ano yung kanilang classification, whether macro or micro nutrient. So kapag sinabi natin macronutrient, yan yung mga nutrients na kailangan ng halaman lang sa pangmaramihan na halaga. Whereas yung micronutrient, kailangan lang niya in trace amounts. And ito yung mga different deficiency symptoms. Huwag niyong kakalimutan, guys, Huwag niyong kakalimutan yung differences ng mobile and immobile na nutrients sa halaman at kung ano yung naaapektuhan niya. That could be a key distinction sa inyo in order to really know kung ano ba yung magiging symptom of deficiency kapag kulang yung nutrient na yun. Number 21, so ito, iron deficiency. Sabi natin, ang iron deficiency is immobile. So ang naaapektuhan yan is yung mga younger tissues. Browning of leaf margins is potassium deficiency. Purple discoloration is phosphorus deficiency. Whereas yellowing of older leaves naman is nitrogen deficiency. So sa question na to, nitrogen deficiency in plants typically manifests as yellowing yan. So yellowing na nag-i-start sa older leaves. Bakit? Kasi nga ang nitrogen natin, mobile siya. Ay, ibig sabihin siya ay gumagalaw. So nawawalan ngayon ng nutrients yung older leaves, kaya nagsasuffer yung older leaves. Nagkukos ng yellowing sa older leaves. Potassium deficiency is a symptoms that begins at, again, yung potassium, ang isipin nyo dyan, yung burning doon sa leaf margins. So letter C, ang tamang sagot dyan. Number 24. Which nutrient deficiency is common in lowland paddies with high organic matter and acidic conditions? So aling nutrient daw dyan, which nutrient deficiency is common daw sa lowland paddies, sa mga lowland rice farms, kung saan dito sa mga paddies na ito, mataas daw ang organic matter content and acidic ang conditions. So alin kaya yung nutrients na nagiging kulang base dito sa situation natin? So balikan natin yung ating table here. Okay? So, basically, ang sagot pala dyan sa number 24 is letter B, molybdenum. Okay? So balikan natin itong table natin na to. Okay? Now, dito, ang situation natin is the soil is acidic. So that's the situation. So the soil is acidic. So punta tayo dito sa itong area na yan. Okay? So kapag acidic yung soil, okay? Kapag acidic yung soil, yung option A natin kanina, which is iron, nagiging kulang ba siya? Hindi. No? Hindi siya nagiging kulang. In fact, kapag acidic yung soil, napakataas ng iron content dyan. How about phosphorus? Okay? Now, the phosphorus, okay? Okay, wait, hindi ko i-erisin yan. It's not meant to erase. Ang mapapansin nyo, yung phosphorus, nagkukulang rin siya under acidic soils, ang phosphorus. Pero sabi natin kanina, kung nakikinig kayo, ang phosphorus, it binds with iron. Di ba? So, it binds with iron. So, kapag marami kang iron, yung phosphorus mo, it could bind to the iron and technically, meron ka pa rin phosphorus sa lupa. Yun nga lang, hindi na siya available. It's not because the soil is acidic, but because the phosphorus binds with the iron. How about boron? Ang boron, kung mapapansin nyo, yes, kapag sobrang acidic na ng lupa, nawawala yan. Pero at 5 to 5.5, yan, 5 to 5.5 na pH, available pa rin ang boron. So, hindi siya problem. No? So, ano talaga yung nutrient na nawawala under acidic condition? Ang nawawala talaga dyan is molybdenum, this one. Okay? Kung mapapansin nyo, kapag strongly acidic na yung lupa, wala ka ng molybdenum dyan. So, in this question, which nutrient deficiency is common sa lowland paddies with high organic matter and acidic conditions? Ang tamang sagot dyan ay molybdenum. So, nawawala talaga ang molybdenum dyan. Okay? Balikan nga natin to. Okay. So, balikan ko lang yung analysis natin nung sa phosphorus. Ngayon, ang phosphorus kasi, kapag acidic yung soil, it binds to iron, so hindi nagiging available yung ating phosphorus. So, tama naman, no? Nagiging limitado yung phosphorus content. So, ang sagot dapat is either phosphorus or molybdenum. However, we have to understand na dito sa situation, it is talking about lowland paddies. So, ano ba yung effect ng flooding? Okay? Ano ba yung effect ng flooding sa lupa? Kapag na-flood ang lupa, usually ang nangyayari dyan, nababawasan din po yung iron content doon sa lupa. So ayaw ng iron ang bahain na lupa. So, dahil ayaw niya ang bahain na lupa, maa-unlock ngayon yung phosphorus under a flooded condition. So phosphorus now becomes available kasi hindi na siya magbabind doon sa iron. So yun yung tamang way of thinking about it pala doon. No? Yun yung tamang way to analyzing kung bakit ang phosphorus available pa rin kahit na strongly acidic yung lupa in a flooded condition. Number 25, for managing spodosol soils suitable for corn cultivation, which of the following is the most recommended practice? So, paano daw natin i-manage ang spodosol for corn production? Basically, yun yung tinatanong. Now, in order for us to answer this question, we need to know ano ba kasi yung limitation ng spodosols. Now, ang mga spodosols natin, mataas ang aluminum dyan, aluminum content, and that aluminum content now, and mataas yung aluminum content because mababa yung pH ng lupa sa spodosol. In fact, ang pH ng spodosols is around 4 to 5 pH. So dahil mababa ang pH ng spodosol, it means spodosols are acidic. Yan yung pinaka-main na problem ng spodosol. So dahil acidic ang spodosol, ano yung way mo to manage acidic soils? So in order for us to manage acidic soils, we need to neutralize its acidity. So the best way to managing spodosol soils is to frequently apply lime para ma-neutralize yung acidity. So that's letter C. Number 26. Which of the following management practices best minimizes soil erosion and loss of topsoil containing high organic matter? So ano yung best way daw natin to minimize soil erosion? Particularly yung loss of topsoil na nagkukos rin ng loss of organic matter. So conventional tillage kaya? Ang conventional tillage yun yung pagbubungkal ng lupa, yung ginagawa natin, yung mechanized na ginagawa natin na pagbubungkal ng lupa. Now, ang conventional tillage, hindi yan maganda sa lupa kasi it could cause future soil erosion. Kasi lagi mong dinidisturb yung natural na aggregates or beds ng lupa. So A is not the correct answer. Okay? Deep plowing. So kapag mas malalim din yung style natin ng plowing, basically it would cause soil erosion kasi dinidestroy natin yung natural aggregates niya. Bare soil exposure, Bare soil exposure. Expose lang natin yung lupa, wala tayong gagawin. Kapag umulan yan at wala tayong ginawa, well, it could cause soil erosion as well. So the correct answer for this is conservation tillage, particularly yung strategy ng mulching. So ano ba kasi yung mulching? Ang ginagawa natin sa mulching, lalagyan natin ng cover yung lupa. Ngayon dahil may cover yung lupa, kapag umulan, yung ulan hindi na directly tatama doon sa lupa. Naiiwasan ngayon ang soil erosion. So B ang tamang sagot dyan. Contour farming. Lumabas na ata ulit itong concept na to sa agricultural extension. So contour farming is primary practice to what? So the reason that we are practicing contour farming, lalo na sa mga sloping areas, is to control soil erosion. Okay? So sa mga sloping areas, katulad nito, diba? Instead of you planting along the slope, instead of you planting along this one, yan, hindi ka na magpa-plant along the slope of the land. Ang gagawin mo, magpa-plant ka, kukontrahin mo ngayon yung slope. Yan, katulad nung ginawa dyan. No? Kukontrahin mo ngayon yung slope. And that could now avoid soil erosion in sloping areas. So, contour farming ang tawag doon. Number 28. Liming acidic soils like spodosol should be done primarily to. So, ano ang purpose? Kaya kung bakit tayo naglalagay ng limes sa acidic soils natin? Ang purpose niyan ay para itaas ang pH. Okay? So, yung lupa from acidic, nagiging neutral siya to basic. So, that's letter B. Number 29. Which of the following factors has the dominant influence on soil formation and determines the distinctive characteristic of soils in different climatic zones? So, base yan dun sa Dukoshev model ulit. Again, yung Dukoshev model, meron tayong CLORP. Okay? Climate, organism, parent material, relief, and time. So, alin daw dun sa apat na yun, 5 na yun, ang dominant, ang pinaka-factor that affects soil formation or the dominant influence on soil formation. Tapos, nagbigay siya ng characteristic. Ano yung characteristic ng feature na yan? Different climatic conditions. So, with the word climatic zones, climatic conditions, so ang tamang sagot na dyan is letter C, climate. Okay? Letter C, climate. Number 30. Rainfall erosivity refers to the capacity of rain to. What is rainfall erosivity? So rainfall erosivity is the potential of rainfall to cause soil erosion. So yung kapasidad ng tubig na galing sa ulan to cause soil erosion, yun yung ating rainfall erosivity. Now this is measured by the combination of ano ba yung impact ng raindrops, okay? And ano yung result niya in terms of runoff. So kapag tumama yung tubig, ano yung nagiging result dun sa lupa? Nagde-detach yung lupa? Yes, pero ano yung magnitude ng detachment ng lupa? So yun yung rainfall erosivity. So for this question, rainfall erosivity refers to the capacity of rain to cause soil detachment, transport, and erosion damage. So that ends our lecture in soil science, our set of coaching in soil science. I would say, guys, please do watch this video and watch also alternative videos na ginawa ko sa bawat subject sa aking YouTube channel. So, papadaliin ko na lang, ilalagay ko na lang yung mga YouTube videos ko na Q&A na ginawa ko last season, ilalagay ko na lang doon sa Google Classroom para mas madali niyong makita at from there, para kasing final coaching na rin yung datingan doon. Kasi Q&A yung style ng lecture doon. So I would suggest na panoorin nyo rin yun kasi baka may mapulot kayong aral doon na makakatulong din sa inyo na makakatulong din sa inyo when you are taking the exam. So this is soil science, another subject, crop science naman, and tapos na yung send-off coaching natin. Thank you.